Hey team, welcome back. So where we're at now, at this very moment, is that we are able to navigate to the update project form, actually make the API call, and get our project object loaded, which is a project that we're going to be updating. And I actually reloaded the application because I actually made a change on the Java server that we need in order for us to keep moving forward. And I made this online change, and I usually don't like doing that. I apologize, but I really wanted to move a little faster here, because what happens is that when we go to the project, to the update project form, and then we submit it, we are not loading the created at that we have at the object, this created at here, which is what we're using with the pre-persist. And since we're not passing that, what's happening is that then the created at goes null. Okay, and actually it's a problem that I had in my in the project that I put on the cloud. So all I did was I went to the project object here, I put add column updatable false, and that way even if we pass a null value, it just won't update, and it will keep track of the date in which the project object was updated. So I did this offline. I don't like doing code changes without you folks, but I just wanted to do this real quick. So go ahead and knock this out, and just put add column updatable false at created at, just at created at, nothing else. This is the only change I did. This is the only change I performed, I promise. Okay, and then just restart the server and create yourself a few projects so we can play with this. Then the other thing that I did offline, it's very simple. I just made sure that each input field has the name attribute matching the parameter in our object. Okay, matching the parameter that we pretend to update using our update form. Okay, so that's all I did offline. Those super little changes. This is going to be on the branch, so don't worry about it. You're gonna be able to see what changed. All right, so now that we have this, next thing in the process of using this update form is to make this update form a controlled component, just like we did for the add project form. In order for us to make this a control component, and by the way, here I'm gonna start going a little faster because these are things that we are already familiar with in this project. In order to make this a control component, we need to start by creating a constructor. No parameters constructor. We're using super here because we're extending from component. And then we're gonna use this.state, which is an object that takes the attributes, right? And that takes the attributes of a project. Now here, again, we need to make sure that we understand what we need to pass on to the server so we can update a project. So we're basically passing everything that we passed on when we created our add project form, but we also have to include the ID from the database, because this is the way that it's going to allow us to keep using the same endpoint for both saving and updating. Remember, JPA is smart enough to know that if you pass it an ID of an object that exists, then it should be fine letting you update without having to create another endpoint for just patching. Okay, so we're gonna copy these attributes here just to make sure that we're actually using the same attributes and that we're not writing anything down and being at the mercy of errors. And then we're just gonna erase this and just set it to blank, because remember, we are setting up a controlled object right now, so that everything that we commit to the server from the form comes from our state. Right, perfect. All right, so now that we have this in place, then the next thing we need to do is actually set up the value parameter in our input fields with the state. Okay, so this one we're going to leave alone because we're not even touching this at all. But this one, then we're going to just start working on the others, right? And as you remember from when we created the add project component, all we need to do is this dot state dot project name, and remember this name, this and this they have to be identical, or else this won't work. Okay, same here. We're gonna load this value, although we're not gonna change it. Remember, this one is non-updatable in the database. Once we create it, that's it. But I'm just gonna load it so you know, so you can see it, right? And it's disabled so that we don't even get the chance to mess with the form. Value here, description. I'm pretty sure you know where this is going, so if you can type faster than I can, which I'm pretty sure you can, just go and do this. Value. And I think we could have saved ourselves a few minutes if we would have just copy pasted this from the add project component, because it's fairly similar. But then I said, you know what? If there's an error, if I forget to clean something up, then I'm going to be confusing you guys. And then not only that, but here you get the additional practice, which, I mean, you're here to learn, so you might as well practice and practice, right? Okay, so now with this in place, we have a controlled form, and at this point we shouldn't be able to obviously type on our form, right? It's logged, which is perfect. All right, so before I actually enable this so that we can actually type on it, I do want to display the values that we have in our state. I actually just want to show this project thing here. I would just want to show it here. I just want to do that before we do anything else. So for this, we're going to use the lifecycle hook component. We'll receive props so that we can set that state from the next props that we're getting. Remember, when we mount, we perform the API call, and then what happens is that then this component receives those props, obviously from the server, or in this case from the reducer, and we already have this all set up here. So you know, it's going to be very straightforward. So now that we have this, we're going to use some destructuring to start setting up the state. And we're going to do const, and we're going to obviously get this from the next props project, right? And just to show you again where this is all coming from, if we go to the React Dev Tools, and we go to the update component, you're going to see that we have the project here. This is exactly what we're getting from the next props once we take the round trip to the API. So this is exactly what we're going to be destructuring here, so we can set the state with this data here. Okay, so what are we going to destructure out of the project object? Basically all these attributes or fields. So we can literally copy paste this here, and then all we want to do is get rid of the colon and the quotes, and we can use the control D as in David to highlight them all, delete them all, save it. We just need to make sure that we keep the commas here, and then since we're destructuring, we're extracting these from the project object, then all we need to do to set the state is this dot set state, parentheses, curly braces, and then all we need to do now is literally copy and paste this here, and this is going to set the state. And just to show you that this is working perfectly, I think that at this point we should start seeing everything displayed, and there you have it. Okay, remember the form before we did this, and just to showcase this, I'm going to comment this out, and it goes away. But then when we bring this back into the mix, then you can see the information of the project that we want to update. And I played with this offline a little bit. That's why you see that update thing. Perfect. All right. So next things that we need to do. And again, I was playing with this offline, but these are like small changes, so don't worry about it. I'm just all you have to do is go take care of it yourself. Is that I brought in the create project function from the project actions. Then down here, I updated the connect one by add the connect function here, and I updated the parameters by adding the create project function here. This stayed the same, and I obviously added as a prop here. Okay, so import it, add it to the connect, then create a prop for it. That's all you need to do. Okay. So now that we have this here, we need to handle two things. We need to handle when this changes, the changes in the form, and then we obviously have to submit it. So at this point, you should know how to do this because it's very similar to what we did for the app project. So I'm going to start with the onChange one. It takes an event, and then as you remember, we are going to use our little shortcut here so that we can basically get the events in which the user is typing on each of the targets by doing these e.target.name and then set it up to the e.target.value. Okay, we did this and we explained this when we built our add project form. Okay, remember, and I just want to reiterate this one more time, this and this need to be exactly the same as this up here in the constructor and this over here, just so that this works. Okay, so now that we did this, then we also want to go back to the constructor and bind it. So all we need to do is this onChange equals onChange bind this, and once we have done this, then all we have to do is add it to each one of the input fields, again just like we did for the add project form. onChange equals this dot onChange, and if we save this and we go back to our project, if we go back to our form, give me just a moment, I have so many things open. We need to stop doing this and be more organized when I open stuff so that I don't keep you guys waiting. Now we can obviously start updating stuff, but obviously we cannot submit anything yet, but at least we can start handling the changes. Okay, and the last step that we're going to take in this video is going to be on submit. Then prevent default so that it doesn't refresh the page. Then we're going to create an object const update project, and then all we're going to do, we can literally copy and paste this here, this set of parameters here, or I'm sorry, this set of attributes here for our element or for our object. And then all we need to do then is actually get rid of the quotes, and then I'm just going to type this dot state, and then I'm just going to change them individually. ID, remember that's with the command D trick. Okay, project name, this is just so we can go a little faster because I don't want this to be too tedious, especially when things are so repetitive. It's very easy to actually get bored. And date. Okay, we're not handling errors in this video. Okay, we just want to make sure that we can actually submit the form. And then with this in place, we need to do 3 more things. Then is basically pass this on to our create project function, which takes the update project, and this .profs.history. Okay, because remember we are redirecting to the dashboard. Then we obviously need to bind this as well. And then last step before we wrap things up is we need to go to the form and bind it to the form, which, as I mentioned, this actually becomes the form's action. And with all this in place, we should be able to update our project. So the way I'm going to update this is I'm going to get rid of this, update it. What did I do wrong? I know what I did wrong. My apologies, guys. This unchanged, this dot unchanged, I only did it for the name. I have to do it for all the input fields, as you guys remember. I'm pretty sure that some of you were like, hey, what are you doing, man? Go finish that up, and I did not. So my apologies. I know that sometimes when we have to go back and forth like this, it confuses people. I apologize for this, but it's also part of the normal development. So now I can actually change this here, update it, description, and we're going to leave the dates as they are. And if I submit, then you see that it was updated. And if I come here, updated description is persisted. If I go to the database, you can see that updated description. And I'm just going to do a few more. This one, I'm just going to erase the update here and update. And actually, I'm going to assign a date to this one. Why not? Because if you, as you can see, this one is test 1. So if you see test 1 doesn't have a start date or an end date for that matter. It's always good to see that everything works. And if I rerun the query here, test 1 has an end date and a start date, and obviously I'm not displaying those here, but if I come here, it is persistent. Okay, so this was perfect. It works. The next thing that we need to do is handle the errors. We're gonna do that in the next lecture, but it's exactly the same thing that we did for the app project. So I really do expect you guys to do this on your own, and then just literally come to the next video just to check my solution. Okay, see you in a few minutes.